Hey guys, welcome back to Dad's Van. Today I'm going to be showing you how I reused the factory floor in my Sprinter crew van as a subfloor underneath my finished flooring. Now in order to do this, I had to buy some products to make that possible, and there's links to those products in the video description. If you use those links, I do get a small commission, but it doesn't cost you anything more. So please consider using those links if you're going to follow my process, and I'd really appreciate your support. Now, I think the Sprinter factory floor is a pretty decent subfloor. I decided that it's good enough for my purposes, and I'm not going to build up a custom floor from scratch. So if you're interested in doing that, check out this video. I'll show you how it's done, and hopefully it'll be useful to you. So let's check it out. All right, in my build, I'm planning on reusing the factory Sprinter floor. But since I had a crew van, it's got cutouts for where the factory seat mounting was, and as well as some oval cutouts and D-ring cutouts. So I purchased these filler plates from Impact Products. There'll be a link to that in the description. And these are going to go in here and fill these holes, similar with the oval. There's an oval cutout and a D-ring cutout as well. Now, one trick about this is that these require a rabbet joint, and Impact Products notes that in the product description. So what that means is I need to cut a 3/8 rabbet joint around the factory floor here, and for that you need this Diablo 3/8 rabbeting bit, and we're going to hook that into our router. And then that's got a bearing here that's going to guide along the existing edge, but cut in 3/8 of an inch. And so I can just follow that all the way around, and it'll make a nice rabbet cut on there. All right, so when I did the rabbet cuts on the floor originally, I totally screwed up and recorded the video in the wrong configuration. So you didn't get to see the cutting, so I decided that's just not good enough for me. I really wanted to show you guys how to do this, so I'm going to make this video over again and take you step by step and just demonstrate on a pallet here how to make that rabbet joint cut. And actually I recommend that you do a test cut on a piece of wood, like a pallet or any piece of wood along the edge, just to kind of get familiar with the feel before you do this on the factory floor. So hopefully this will be helpful. Let me show you how it's done. All right, so in order to make a rabbet cut on the factory Sprinter floor, you're going to need to pick up a couple of things. First, you need to pick up this router or a similar router from your local hardware store. This is a really good one by DeWalt. It's got a lot of features for dialing in the depth of the cut. I highly recommend it. I'll have a link to this in the video description. The other thing you're going to need is a rabbet joint cutting bit like this. And I'll have a link to this in the video description too. This has the cutting wheel here, the red part, and then it also has this bearing down below. Now, when you're cutting, this bearing is what's going to be guiding you as you go around, and the red part here is what's going to be cutting into the material. All right, so first step is going to be installing this rabbet joint cutting bit into the router. Now to do that on this router, you have to release this locking mechanism here and squeeze these two tabs. That's going to allow this jacket to come off. And now we can insert this rabbet joint bit into the collet here. And then there's a locking button here. So you want to press that. And then while that's pressed, go ahead and take the wrench and tighten that nut, collet nut here. can release that button when you're done. So that rabbet joint bit is now securely in there. All right, next we can take the jacket and install it. All right. Okay, now that we have the bit installed, the next thing we want to do is set the depth. Okay, now the depth can be adjusted by opening this locking lever here and then rotating this depth adjustment ring, this big black ring here. Counterclockwise is going to lower the bit deeper below the guide here, and clockwise is going to raise it. Now remember, with a rabbet cut, the difference between the edge of the bearing and the edge of the cutting bit, the red part, that determines how far into the edge the rabbet joint cut is going to be. So in this case, it's a 3/8. So this bearing is going to guide along the edge, and the red piece is going to be cutting in 3/8 of an inch. So that's going to determine how far in we go, and that's set by the size of the bit. Now, but the depth is how far deep along that edge that rabbet joint's going to be, and that's set by turning this adjustment ring. So first thing we want to do to set the depth is zero it out. So to do that, we want the red cutting bit to be pretty much flush with the bottom of this guide. Or if I were to set it down on here with the bearing touching against this inside edge, the red cutting piece should be flush with the material, like that. Okay, so that's my 0 point. So once we've got it flush like that, we're going to take this micro dial here, and that has a number 0 on it, and we're going to line that up with this black ring has a tick mark on it. I'll line that 0 up there. So now we're zeroed out, and then from there we set the depth. So if I want to cut 1/8 of an inch deep, I now turn the black ring, which is going to move this hash mark here along the scale, the yellow scale, until it reaches 1/8, which is right there. And you can see now the bit has been lowered about 1/8 of an inch. So now when we start cutting, we're going to start out here. When we start cutting, we start here and we move into the wood, and so immediately the red cutting bit is going to cut that rabbet joint. It's going to cut it at a depth of 1/8 of an inch, and it's going to cut into the material 3/8 of an inch until that bearing bumps up against the side, which is going to stop it. So I'll do a demonstration of that now. All right, so now you can see that we have this rabbet joint cut in here. It's at 3/8 of an inch because that was the size of the cutting bit. Difference from the bearing to the end of the cutting bit. And then the depth is set at 1/8 of an inch because of how deep we set the router. And so that's what we're going to do when we cut out the factory spinner 4 for the filler pucks. We're going to use this 3/8 rabbet joint bit, and we're going to set the depth to match the depth on the floor, on those cutouts on the floor, and then we'll go all the way around each one. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and zero this out. I'm gonna let the bearing drop into the space, but I want the red part of the rabbet bit to be touching the top surface, and I'm gonna set that as my 0 point. All right. Okay. All right, and then I've got that at between 1/8 and 3/16. On the oval shape cutout, the part from Impact Products didn't fit perfectly. I don't know if that was a function of the part or of the cut from Mercedes, but a little 60 grit sandpaper to open up that oval on the inside of the floor a little bit, and then rerouting it. Just, do that slowly, kind of looking for where you need to open it up, and eventually it'll fit in there. All right, there's the finished product. Looks really nice. Notice I didn't fill the back 2 D-rings because those are going to be covered up anyway. So, and I might be using those holes as well for mounting some other things, but everything else here looks good. Really excited about it, and we'll get this in. We'll drill up from the bottom the holes that need to be made in this for the seat, and then we'll be ready to put some flooring material on it. And one of the things you can do, see how well you have this lined up, is go ahead and put one of the D-ring cups back in. Make sure it lines up well with the floor underneath. It's okay if there's a small gap here between the back and the front panel. And also the front panel is going to be a little more raised because there's a strip of Velcro right here. So don't worry too much about that. All right, that concludes this video on how to reuse the factory floor in the Sprinter as a subfloor. If you like the video, please hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, consider using the links in the video description if you're going to buy any of these products. We do get a small commission from that, but it doesn't cost you anything more. You can also donate to our channel through a PayPal link. Any support is greatly appreciated. Thanks so much, and most importantly, have fun out there.